All right, so we are about to dive into the first rendition, the first ever episode of, what do we call it?
NerdTurd
Talks.
Because that's what we're doing. We're just hanging out.
Simple
couple
to
of
the point.
dudes just talking.
Yeah, we literally
Couple.
just finished up recording.
A couple could be 2 plus some, can it?
Yeah, I don't know.
a trio of pals.
Trio of friends.
So we literally seconds ago just finished up recording episode 29 of the NerdTurd podcast, which you should check it out if you haven't. Somehow
Almost
you
to
stumbled
episode
across
30, and so am I.
That's true.
Dude.
That's true. We've made more
Wow.
episodes of that podcast than years I've been alive.
Same.
That's kind of weird. That's
because we
kind of
made
crazy
two
to think
of.
about.
We broke one into two.
So somehow,
yeah.
if you
No,
stumble
that was
across
fine.
if you stumble across this video and you haven't checked out our podcast, feel free to check it out there. We didn't want to talk about the Mandalorian on it because it's spoiler filled, and we wanted to give people time to breathe.
Spoiler filled.
So we are just kind of
Full of spoilers.
on a unplugged in format, just gonna
Unplugged yet very plugged.
very plugged.
As you guys can see, Chris has adopted Kevin's mic etiquette. So
Well, there's not really a way for me
Losing
to
battle,
face
fighting
this
on.
way.
You know what I've adopted now? I don't know if you guys can tell, but this is literally sitting on my just belly
there
fat.
you go.
Just
My dad used to be able to do that with perfect precision with a natty light. Like literally, he would be watching NCIS, and that thing would be sitting, not moving. The shelf.
You know, maybe this is appropriate, maybe it's not. But the first time I ever drank beer by accident was my dad was literally doing that, and he fell asleep and just had a can that that's just a can of liquid, and I was a kid, right?
Yeah.
And I assumed it was Coke because it was red. Little did I know it was a Budweiser.
Not
And-
even Bud Light. Full
No,
on
dude,
Bud
Budweiser.
heavy boy.
Dude, it was a Bud Diesel, baby.
Nice.
And I was disgusted. It shook me to my core.
What simpler times when we were
A
young
very
kids?
similar thing
Little
happened also.
Padawans.
A very similar thing happened to me with sour cream and vanilla ice cream as well.
Oh, I've heard that story.
Yeah,
It's
my
unfortunate.
my I guess for whatever reason, like a psychopath, my grandfather had a carton of sour cream. He needed so much sour cream that he needed a carton's worth.
Sounds like Gene.
Do you like sour cream like
I
that?
love
He
sour
loves sour cream, dog.
cream.
And
You didn't know that?
I mean,
Loves it.
I've seen you put sour cream on things. I've never like associated like, whoa.
Yeah, I love sour cream. It's good.
Whoa. One of Andrea's best friends also loves sour cream.
Gene.
And she's single.
Hey, Gene, for real though, there's this girl at my work that says she's single and she's ready to mingle. So I think you and her might do some mingling.
Nah.
All right. But I'll save the sour cream story for another time.
Yeah, we're here to
another
talk about
time.
the Mandalorian.
We're here to talk about Mandalorian. We can
Mandalorian Chapter 1.
we can raff on the podcast. But yeah, so Mandalorian Chapter 1, that was the big selling point, honestly, of Disney Plus. That's the thing that everyone was zooted up about. Hey, you guys all watched it.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I literally watched it before I came here tonight.
Yeah, you watched it hours ago. This is fresh.
Hey, way to
Good.
get that in, Gene.
Thanks.
Way to do whatever it takes for the pod.
Dedication.
Yeah, you're welcome for letting me use my Disney
Yeah,
Plus.
thank you
login.
for that.
Yeah, dude. Buy the freaking thing. It's like $6.99 a month, dog.
So
Now
I
he
actually
has no
was.
motivation.
I
You know
actually
he
was
has my
going
login.
to. Yeah, well, I don't, but I actually went to sign up for the free trial because I saw that it was 7-day free trial, and I like put in my email. I created a password, and then it said, "All right, give us your card information for at the end of the 7 days, so we can charge you."
Bro, you know that's the way every free trial works, though.
And
Yeah,
it
but you know what I
freaked
didn't
out.
do? Put in my card
Oh
information.
my
It
goodness.
freaked you out.
Oh,
So then I
my
just kept it.
goodness.
Jeez. Well, I mean, so I guess I'll just kind of open it up. I mean, what were your guys' initial thoughts?
I really liked it.
Did it meet expectations? Did it exceed? Were you underwhelmed?
I thought it met expectations, but my expectations were pretty high. I think I've always wanted to know more
That's
about
good.
Mandalorians, and I've always wanted to like see more about this whole universe. I'm honestly very surprised that it isn't just a Boba Fett story. I thought if Star Wars ever did a Mandalorian story, it would be a series, a deep dive into who Boba Fett was. Because really, honestly, the only thing you see about him is that, I mean, who knows? Maybe, well, no, Mandalorian can't be Boba Fett because it's in between episodes 6 and 7, right?
Yeah. So the timeline of it initially confused. I was unaware of the timeline when I watched it the first time.
I also
And
just
so-
want you guys to know, you guys know how green I am in my like Star Wars fandom. So this is a very like interesting endeavor to take on something that is like a spin-off of something that I don't know a whole lot about.
Know too much about.
So it was very interesting.
But you've seen all the movies, right? You get the gist.
I get the gist.
Whoa.
I couldn't tell you if I've actually seen all of the Star Wars movies. So
You've seen all the like Skywalker saga though.
yeah, I've seen all of the like last 3 that have come out. Yeah. So, but I couldn't tell you if I've seen in their totality.
Okay. This is
all
something
the
we got to
others.
change, dude.
Yeah, well, that's what we didn't actually talk about it on the podcast,
Oh,
but we
yeah.
did. We took on as a group that we're going to watch through all of the original 6,
which is
and
another
I guess
reason why you should get Disney Plus.
the others
true.
after the first 6 before Rise of Skywalker comes out. So hopefully by the time it does come out, I will be more well versed in
Dude,
my.
you're gonna be so deep into
Star
Star
Wars
Wars lore by
knowledge.
that time.
But
Hey, I actually started listening to our friend Maria, who is in the room. You can't see her right now, but she also does our social media. She told us about
She's
a
great.
podcast called Binge Mode, and I actually listened to the first episode of Binge Mode of Fact of Star Wars. It was really good.
Was it about Mandalorian?
It was really they knew a lot. Like I was very surprised.
speaking of Mandalorian, this is another shout out that we can do here too. The Seahorse Lounge, I saw on their social media
Yeah.
that they're doing an in-depth look at the first episode.
Yeah, on
tonight
their
as well.
Patreon. So
yeah,
you should
on their
go check them
Patreon.
out. They're really
So-
awesome guys. We've kind of messaged back and forth a little bit. They're out of Kentucky.
Yeah, so I guess I'll just kind of jump straight to the end because that explains it. So I was very confused by the timeline of this because when I first was watching it, I assumed it was like way in the future of the original trilogy. Then halfway through it, I was like, well, maybe this is way in the past of the original trilogy because I just like they had announced when the timeline was. I just was very unaware.
Yeah, there's nothing in the show
And-
that tells you.
Well, they said something like, "Well, you know, there's at the very beginning they say, well, you know, that when the bounty hunter initially goes to turn in all the people that he had carboned, and he says, well, they try to pay him in imperial credits, and he's like, well, you know, there's no more empire, right? And he wouldn't take that. And he wouldn't take that money.
After the Empire.
Yep.
Balls.
And so the empire fallen. Then he took a pay cut to take some other form of currency, right?
Yeah.
Which looked squishy.
It
right?
did, yeah.
But then,
what is
you know,
that?
jumping forward to the end, obviously spoilers if you haven't kind of figured it out at this point, but when the little baby Yoda looking thing was
Ooh,
there,
baby Yoda.
because everyone's, I mean, so again, I was unaware of the timeline, so I assumed that is a Yoda origin story.
Yep.
That was my first thought.
That was what I initially thought as well. but
And so when I
timeline
saw
doesn't match.
today the whole Star Wars timeline thing drop, and I was like, wait, what? How can that be Yoda?
Dude, Yoda
if,
been dead.
if this is after Yoda died? And so then I was like, wait, did Yoda have a kid? Is this just a story about Yoda, like Yoda's species? Like,
Dude,
why is there?
what if that was Yoda's kid? That would be the biggest
I think it
conspiracy
is.
ever. No, because Jedi can't love.
But the thing
That would
is,
be
is-
like the biggest conspiracy ever if Yoda broke the Jedi Order.
right. But the thing is that I've seen this conspiracy theory going around, not, you know, whatever, about why there was such a high price on them capturing this thing, and that was because it was Yoda's kid.
It's a good theory. It's an
And
interesting
that's why
theory.
that's why they were so intrigued by this.
Here's what I
And
know.
I think it was force sensitive because when they unveil him, it's in like a cradle that's like on like a mound of garbage.
Here's what
And
I'll
the very
tell you
last
about
scene
Star
is the
Wars.
baby cradle. Like in
After
there.
what they did in Episode 8 with Luke and kind of besmirched his character that fans were in love, they cannot do that to Yoda. There is no way they will, in canon, besmirch Yoda, the perfect, clear Jedi
Yeah, that's
math.
true.
There's no way they can make his character retrospectively.
But that's the thing, though,
bad.
is but we don't know anything about his species. So what if he has an asexual species
And he just recreated himself.
and he just had an offspring?
I mean, maybe that definitely could.
And
be
so
the
and so
case,
that's
but
the thing,
that'd
is
be
it doesn't
interesting.
necessarily mean that like he had some like
What if his species is like a phoenix and he's like
He's like revived.
rising from the ashes.
all jokes aside, I literally saw this. So I saw this theory that like this was the Force like rebirthing Yoda, and so
I
the
literally have
timeline
no
of this
idea.
50-year-old Yoda baby, whatever. I'm just gonna refer to him as Yoda, even though it's not.
Yeah, that's Yoda, baby dog.
Yoda
Even though
baby
we don't know anything.
would put him born on the same year that Anakin Skywalker was born.
Hmm?
So the timeline of 50 years, so it's set 5 years after.
Anakin was born in the very first one.
Right. It's set 5 years after the, what is it? This
sixth movie.
Right. And so 50 years before that, that would put him at the timeline of being born the same year of Anakin. Because at the end of the, that would put it at like 63, whatever.
So you're saying 50 years after episode 6?
It's 50 years after episode
6, and Anakin is
no.
dead.
It's 5 years after episode 6.
Which Anakin was
the
Darth Vader
baby
and
was
old and
50
died.
years old.
Oh,
Yeah, the baby was 50 years old.
Okay, I'm kind of getting what you're putting down with that.
Yeah, and so that's why I think there's a lot of cool theories regarding that, because basically they're saying like, regardless if it's Yoda, that was basically the balance, like, or the Force balancing itself out is creating this other like really Force sensitive thing the same year that Anakin Skywalker was born.
does
So
make
that would
sense
be like balance
from a
Something very
perspective
good.
of
So
the
that's
Force.
why there's
Yeah,
such a
the
high.
Force-
That's why there's such a high
yes,
price on his
the
head.
Force always balances
That's
itself out. Yeah, that makes sense.
I going back to just my thoughts in general about the show. One, I have a couple of observations. One, I loved how Disney made it super violent, but not super gory
Yes.
/ vulgar. I mean, that dude gets chopped in half with that door closing, which is incredibly violent. But the way they did it, I mean, Disney, I feel like with these Marvel movies has really been able to up their action level in movies that's
Mhm.
still in a way that like you
That's
feel
cool.
like the stakes
Yeah.
are high, but it's not, super nasty per se. I love that. I mean, because within the first 5 minutes, he breaks a dude's arm, slams a mug into someone's head, and chops the dude in half with a door. It was awesome. I love the way they did the carbonite people that he like kept, and it was like a filing cabinet. He just like, oh yeah,
Yeah,
that guy,
that's cool.
that guy. Like I love that. I
Yeah.
thought that was really awesome. The one thing I honestly hated, and I'm sure it'll tie in later in the show, but I hated how you have this guy who they're like, oh, I've heard you're the best there is, the best bounty hunter ever, and then for 10 minutes he's can't ride this animal. Like he's like touted as like the best bounty hunter there is,
Yeah,
and then has to go to this old sage
the blurg.
to ride a blurg, and he's getting destroyed by this thing, which I'm sure there's a learning curve, but it's weird that someone that advanced at hunting people looks like an idiot doing this. To when the guy also says
Yeah.
you have to have this to get to where you're going, yet they don't show any of the journey. So like I
They
thought
show a
that you'd
little
see
bit of
that
it.
Berg like jumping on like certain things that humans couldn't traverse, but it's just hard for me to think in an age that they have spaceships that he like has to traverse something by foot with
Yeah,
that
interesting.
animal.
I think there was also a little bit of like that stuff. I didn't see any of that kind of thing around. Like I didn't see
Yeah.
any spaceships on that planet. Like I didn't see any speeders.
But I mean, he flew there at this. Like, why couldn't he just like fly over?
yeah, I guess that's
200
true.
yards?
They showed a little bit of the journey. Now I guess I'm kind of like
That was just the one part of the episode that I was like, what?
Yeah,
But
it
if
was
I had to
interesting.
guess, I would think that the first place he's going to go with Yoda Baby is back to that guy.
Well, do you think like Michael Jordan could learn how to ride a horse in first try?
No, but there's just not a need. Like, I don't know why he would, why would this super bad bounty hunter even listen to
I
this
do
guy?
agree with you that they did a bad job explaining why he had to have a blurb. or
It was very
blurb or
quick.
whatever.
It was just like, I guess maybe bad by the fact that they didn't really take much time to explain
Yeah.
it. They just basically like he showed up and this guy was
Do you
like,
think that they're
this
ever
guy was
have
like,
to
you
do
you
this.
can't use a speeder. You have to ride this.
Do you ever
And
think they're
he
gonna
didn't- there was no
give-
further explanation, and then it cut immediately to him trying
Get
to learn.
Yeah,
how to
yeah,
ride
yeah,
it.
by
yeah.
that thing.
It was like
Yeah.
nothing. It was like, oh, okay. He's like,
yeah,
oh,
why would
I
he be
guess,
like,
all right,
okay,
yeah,
I
cool.
guess
Yeah,
this
sure.
is what I got to do?
Yeah, you got to do it.
He's like, yeah, all right.
Yeah, no, that's
Yeah.
interesting. Yeah, well, like why couldn't he just ride on the other guy's blurb? Blurg.
Blurb.
Blurp.
Because, bro,
Do you
I
think they're
have
gonna?
spoken.
Do you think they're
Yeah,
gonna
I
give
have
the Mandalorian?
spoken. That was awesome.
Do you think they're gonna give the Mandalorian personality?
I think one of the big reveals is he's going to take off his mask.
You think he's gonna take it off?
Yeah, definitely, because that is like the foreshadowing, the build up that they've been talking about is like,
I definitely
never take
think
off their masks.
they've already hinted at like. I honestly, again, coming from someone who doesn't know a whole lot about it, like I would presume that like Mandalorians, these bounty hunters are like supposed to be fairly emotionless. Like
Yeah.
you know,
That's what I'm saying,
they're just
like,
all about the business. Well, I think that that's even the case. Is like because clearly, even when he like went and took the bounty initially, like they told him that they wanted it alive, but then the old guy who like was giving him the bounty, like made it fairly clear that he actually didn't care, like
Yeah.
whether he like killed the target as long as he proved that he killed the target. And then they obviously also sent another bounty hunter with that like droid bounty hunter
dude,
to
he
come.
was awesome. I
And-
love that droid.
and like
You
they
need to
like
shake
said
it
that. I was gonna say we're
up.
we're losing our video feed here, but like they like they sent another bounty hunter, and that droid bounty hunter was given the mission to eliminate the target. And
Do you think it was by the same guy? What if it's
Yes.
another person
Yes.
that's in that bounty droid?
I think
would
it
be-
was probably I definitely think it was by the same guy, because I think the whole thing was they wanted like
They were trying to kill that
they didn't
baby.
want to track they didn't want anyone to track, which I think makes a lot of sense with the whole Force thing and speculating whose baby or what this baby could be, because
Yeah.
they wanted it to keep it under wraps. They didn't want any. If there was the little tracking pod, the little tracking thing, anyone could have come across it and realized that there was a bounty for this like secret baby.
Yeah.
And so, but I definitely think that it's all that's leading into they're definitely going to build some personality into this character, and I think he's going to evolve, because you can tell even at the end of the first episode he had to make the conscious decision, he made a conscious, righteous decision to save this baby,
by killing the droid.
this 50-year-old target, by killing the droid that he had already been told he could bring back dead.
Yeah.
You know,
And that's what I'm saying. Like, so I think he's gonna become a big softie, because he's already like you can already see he's like trying to help rebuild the Mandalorians. He got paid whatever the heck that thing was.
Beskar steel or something.
Yeah,
like that.
he
I
made
think
a
his
he made
little
a sweet
shoulder.
He made a
little shoulder
sweet
pad.
pauldron out of it, and then gave the rest of the kid to sponsor the what do they call it? The
pauldron.
foundlings or
That's
whatever.
some wild
To sponsor
stuff,
the rest
right?
of the foundlings, because he was one. Then he kills that droid, so the droid doesn't kill the baby
Yeah.
or baby
Yes.
Yoda.
I think
I
it
think
is
he's gonna be
definitely
softy.
setting up for a lot of character development.
Yeah, I
in
mean,
this
all that like
protagonist.
flashback when he's hammering that thing, and you see him getting like ripped away from his family and his like home
Mhm.
getting destroyed whenever he hits the hammer. I think that is going to be, his inner trauma of a
Yes.
child is going to cause him to have compassion on this child,
It's going to be a lot of character development that is counterintuitive to what a Mandalorian is supposed
which
to be.
is going to be awesome.
Yeah, I think
All
it's
right,
going to be cool.
so let's wrap it up here. Predictions for Chapter 2.
I think the first thing that's going to happen is he's going to go back. I think that old scribe guy that teaches him how to ride the blurgy derg. I think that
Blub, blub,
guy,
blub.
the blub, 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 I think that guy is going to
Blub.
have a big role in like helping the Mandalorian express himself. Like I think he's going to be the sage character.
He has spoken.
He has
I have
spoken.
spoken.
What do you
I think you're going to find out fairly quickly who this target is. And I
Hmm.
think that is going to cause the character development that we're going to see, because I think the Mandalorian is going to have to consciously decide. Like
He's going to have to
what he
fight the
wants
people
to
that
do.
hired him.
Yes, I think he's going to have to
Yep.
make a conscious decision to go against what he was initially getting paid to do, because he's going to find out who this target really is.
I also just gonna throw this in there. I think the baby's gonna have force powers and it's gonna be like beating some people up at some point. I think you're gonna see the baby put its hand out.
I was going to say, I'm
People are
interested to
gonna,
say,
like, get
I guess it
destroyed.
is a baby with the way that this species,
But if it's 50 years old, I mean,
like ages, I
Yeah.
guess it's like they make it out to be an infant of whatever species.
That's the thing, we
it
don't know
is.
if it is.
Yeah, I was going to say, but
We
we
don't know its
So I
development.
think that'll be curious to
We
see.
just know
like,
the stature of its
what
body.
happens.
Speaking of
Yeah.
Star Wars, Episode 2, when Yoda was walking with his cane and he dropped his cane, pulled out his lightsaber, and started doing flips everywhere. I remember being so hype in the movie theater to see that. So I think we're going to see kind of similar to that Yoda scene
But
in
younger.
Episode 2. I think we're going to see this baby. This baby's going to actually be a functioning
Yeah.
animal species
Yeah.
and be able to like do
See
some
that.
stuff.
I don't see. I guess I don't know if I buy that. I think they're just going. I genuinely think this will be some sort of offspring of Yoda, and I think, or in the family of Yoda, and I think because there's still Jedi academies at this point, so I think they are going to try to get this Yoda baby wound up at a Jedi academy. Because they've only said that the Empire's down. They haven't really mentioned like what else is going on. But you heard a lot of people saying like even the bounty hunter guy, the guild leader, was like, there's a lot of business out there, but they don't want to pay guild rates because they don't care if things get a little messy.
Yep.
And so there seems to be a lot of chaos going on. And so I
Yeah.
assume that there's some form of Sith force presence, and this baby is going to be the counter presence of it.
I definitely think that is a really cool story. I think that it's going to be sad because I think the Yoda baby has to die, or it has to tie into the Rise of Skywalker.
This Yoda baby dies.
Because if it actually was Yoda's offspring, there's no way that wouldn't affect the world and us see it in episodes 7 and 8.
This Yoda baby's gonna die.
I think it's probably going to die too.
But we're gonna wrap it over there. Thanks for tuning in. See you next time.
So,
Nerd Talks.
Nerd Turd Talks coming at you.